Welcome to the latest Dork Outs with the Film Dorks. I'm Tom.
I'm Nick.
I'm Lucas.
I'm Bridget. Oh,
They look like a couple of dorks.
All my favorite films are in Japanese. I know what it means when you say RPG. You say I'm a dork, but that's okay. I'm gonna be your boss one. They finally let me on the football field, 'cause in marching band I play the glockenspiel. I know I'm a dork, but that's okay. I'm gonna be your boss one day.
That was inappropriate. I'm sorry. Don't cancel me, please.
We're talking this week about the soundtracks of the paranormal, which means the sound design and also the score that makes paranormal movies special. For the vast majority of the past 75 years, they used sound to scare people with.
Some of the best paranormal movies are just like, windows opening and doors closing and balls rolling down the fucking stair. With the score and the ambient sound built into that and the way it can be terrifying. That's the one thing about good paranormal movies that other horror movies can't really get away with, is you don't have to see anything and still make it scary. I mean,
so we're going to mention The Haunting on our next podcast, which is supernatural movies. We're going to mention The Haunting as one of them, and that one has a great score for it, but they also use a lot of sound design. I think it's the first time I've ever saw sound design used in a movie like that before. The idea of like score and sound, it's been an evolving process. And a lot of the earlier movies, they didn't really understand Foley or even use it much. So it was mostly through the score, through the music. Yeah. They would try to create the mood.
Early movies, like through the 60s at least, I think, were mono. They only had one soundtrack for throughout the whole movie, and then it changed to stereo. So there was like a little bit of expansion in the sound field there, but really they didn't have a whole lot to play with. I mean, a large majority of people have like 5.1 at least surround sound in their home. And and the movie theaters have incredible stuff with Dolby Atmos, and they have like 35 speakers or something involved in that.
It's insane.
So the sound designers of today can not only play with multiple sounds, coming from different directions, but also moving through space and creating like really detailed 3D imagery with the sounds, and it's amazing what they can do with that stuff. But movies from the 70s are just as scary and just as convincing, and
in some ways maybe even more so. Like, think about a movie like The Exorcist that granted is hilarious to watch after you've seen it like 1,000 times, but the first few times watching that movie were devastating. I mean, and the score,
that movie still amazes me.
Tubular Bells
that they say in that movie that I'm just like, I can't believe a rated R movie got away with the shit that they did.
Stick your cock up her ass, you motherfucking worthless cocksucker.
Be silent.
So we're not talking about The Exorcist because it's a possession movie, not a supernatural movie. But like Tubular Bells was that wasn't even originally supposed to be for that movie. We'll do a possession episode and we can get deep into it. But that was like added in when the person was just laying down temp tracks, and it worked so fucking well that they kept it. But
when you think of something like Poltergeist, there's so much going on with sound design in there, like in the other realm and stuff like that. Like,
just the static.
Oh, the TV.
Just the static on the TV. I mean, and a big part of knowing how to do sound design for scares is also how to use silence.
Oh yeah, I think that's what separates a lot of supernatural movies from other horror films, is the use of silence and suspense.
It's created sort of a kind of a shitty trend these days, which is the jump scare. It's not something that was invented in the 2000s for sure, but it seems to be much more prevalent these days.
Has anybody seen The Lady in Black, the one with Harry Potter?
Yes, with Harry
I've seen
Potter.
I saw that in the theaters, and it was really like it's a ghost story. It's a supernatural movie, but it had some really great jump scares that felt like I was at a haunted house. And I actually kind of liked the movie for that because they did use pacing really well. It'd be like quiet and all the suspense would be building. Then they'd have like a crow jump out or something. And I just remember thinking like, yeah, the story's cool. It's a traditional ghost story, but they did a really great job with the sound design on that film that really helped sell all the scares in it.
Just with like the jump scares, like I think when I watch, more some of these modern movies, like it's almost like, because I like the silence, like it's almost like they play it too long because then like you're expecting the jump scare. I've noticed when I've watched like other films and like it's like you don't notice the music has stopped until like something has already happened. You're like, oh, like it just builds it up. But I think like Lucas said it, like the jump scares like has become like such kind of like an overused gag, like because I think of like all the Paranormal Activities. I mean, God knows how many there are now, but like that was like the whole thing. Like six.
I don't know.
Okay,
I'm just
there's
guessing.
six. The
I've been
Devil's
wanting
Number,
to make.
ironically.
I've been wanting to make a fake trailer called "Jump Scare the Movie."
The funny
want
thing
jump
about the
scares.
Paranormal Activity movies is they really made excellent use of sound in an otherwise like very cheap movie. I mean, there's a lot of like just empty video frames there and stuff, and so they really do build a lot of their world with sound in those movies, and it allowed them to basically make something out of nothing. I mean,
I think you're right, Tom. And it's funny how they always claim those movies like we shot it for $10,000 or like $500, and they're so full of shit because the amount of money they had to spend on Foley and sound design is like they spent way more than that just like on a few days in the studio, but they don't like talk about that in the marketing.
Yeah, I
Well,
mean,
they just tell that to all the actors so they don't have to pay them.
Exactly, they don't have to pay them royalties. Yeah.
Honestly,
But-
Paranormal 7 at this point is going to be like either like Paranormal Activity via Zoom or like I want to see like something like with the Ring doorbells, like because I see that on the news all the
I
time
have
now.
a really good one. If someone wants to watch it, it's one of the most modern ones. It's really good. Is Host.
Wait, is that a ghost story though? I thought that was like a home invasion.
Yeah, it's fucking cool too. They do an awesome job. It's actually uncomfortable, and it's
I
a
will
Zoom
watch
call.
it for this podcast. I will watch it for this.
We should talk about it. It's actually really well done. I was super impressed with it.
And that's something where if the cameras are all locked into position like ours are, then they have to use a lot of sound design.
Yeah, I bet.
I mean, there's some cool little effects that they pull off in it. They do some smart stuff in it. Nothing ridiculously complicated, but some minor effects, but like the sound and stuff like that it's interesting. It's worth watching.
But Paranormal Activities and Host are examples of like you can get by with having questionable video but you can't chintz on the music, the sound design, the atmosphere, like that. The sound is what sells a supernatural movie.
That's one thing I don't remember about Host, and I'll have to at least watch part of it again. I remember really liking it, but I don't know if there's really a score to it.
Well, maybe not.
Which is part of the gimmick,
That's one of the most powerful tools to use as a subconscious tension builder, because a lot of times if those things are subtle enough, the person the viewer doesn't really notice it actively. They just all of a sudden feel nervous.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a ghost story, but Hereditary. I was so hyper aware of these like high pitched like sounds they would have throughout scenes where it would just go and keep going and keep going, and it was started to make me feel really anxious and uncomfortable. And I'm like, yeah, I know what you're trying to do here. I know what you're trying to do, and it still fucking worked.
Children and old people.
They're the scariest parts of movies.
Maybe
I hate that they flipped like the most innocent people probably on the planet into like the scariest.
That's what it is.
It's ridiculous.
Like You're never afraid of those things.
So they look at the
you.
camera.
Yeah, exactly. Until they look at you really weird, and then the sound swells in.
So that little girl in Poltergeist, such a good
Carol Ann.
choice.
Yeah.
It's such a sad story about her, actually. By the way, if you guys are interested, watch Cursed Films on Shudder. They go through all these like films, and the whole point of the series is just to refute the series. They're like, well, there's really no such thing as a cursed film. Like, they essentially have experts come on to tell them they're full of shit, and I give them credit for that. But it's still a cool series to watch. But Poltergeist, we're going to get into it next week. But that film is, I think that is kind of the quintessential haunted house.
Yeah.
Heather O'Rourke is the little girl that you're talking about.
Heather O'Rourke, she's just so great in that. But like her being, first of all, talk about kinder trauma. The static we mentioned earlier on the TV. For any time when I was a kid, when you see static on the TV, would just make me feel scared because of that movie.
Yeah.
But the idea of her, like that innocent kid being trapped in this other dimension, like, and her, like, we talk about the voice that they would do with her, like calling out from the dimension. I mean, that was like terrifying for me as a kid.
Yeah, the sound in that movie is
really well done.
It's ridiculous. Like in the pool.
Yeah, they keep popping up.
Sound-wise, for those movies in the 70s, it was especially hard.
Because it was mostly soundtrack.
It was all analog still. I mean, they had some advanced technology at that point, like multi-tracking and time code and things. But they've had like 40 plus years of development at that point. But it was still a very laborious process, and like to do things like the reverse echoes and things like that they did to Carol Ann's voice. Those things took a lot of people and a lot of like expensive equipment and a lot of like dubbing from tapes to film on tape and optical tracks.
Can you find a way home to us, baby?
And now you can just get an app for it.
Yeah.
Like now your brother can do it on GarageBand and email it to you on the other side of the country if you need to. It's unbelievable the way that those things have changed over the last 40 years.
I know.
So here's a question then for you guys, what ghost movie has the best soundtrack then?
This is a great question, and we need to have an answer for you.
Yeah.
End of next episode. At the end.
Big question mark. So give us a follow at Screen Radar. We are on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. You can check us out, our podcast, Film Dorks, and also, Lucas, we have The Line, which is now on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. And also check us out on Letterboxd.
Until then, I'm Tom.
Nick.
Lucas.
I'm Bridget.
And we're dorking out.
I know I'm a dork, but that's okay.